Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, there's something to be said about those cinematographers who can craft a masterful shot before the shot's even 100% full yet. And you know, if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I am going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, give us your 5-star rating, set up your notifications, you know, do all that fun stuff to get to listen to us all the time and subscribe. We're pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so you can give us a like and subscribe there as well. We would certainly appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, probably a few other places too. Threads, Tumblr. I lose track, but we're in the seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for our latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness and come on and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got another fun one, another behind-the-scenes looks at one of your favorite shows. We're diving into Foundation, which is on Apple TV Plus now, a fantastic piece of sci-fi that I get a huge kick out of. I love. It's an amazing looking show, and we had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with a couple of the guys who put in the work to make it look amazing. A couple of the cinematographers on the show, the one and only Owen McPolin and Cathal Watters. And we talked about just working on a show like this and getting involved and sort of the intricacies of what their job is, especially on such an effects-driven show when there's a lot of CGI and there's a lot of stuff that comes coming in after the fact. It was really quite interesting to me. And we had a great talk, but like I said, if you haven't already, go check out Foundation. There's 2 seasons over on Apple TV Plus that you should really check out. It is some fantastic sci-fi. But first, enjoy our talk with cinematographers Owen and Cathal, because between you and me, it's a pretty darn good conversation. I enjoyed it. But yeah, that's it. Talk to you later. All right, well, Owen, Cathal, I mean, obviously, first off, just thank you so much for the time today. And I mean, congrats on your work on Foundation.
You're very kind. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks very much. And I'm sorry, David, that I almost didn't make it, but I'm here and I'm delighted to be here.
Fantastic. No worries at all. No worries at all. But I mean, I guess my first question for you both is because, and this might be a dumb question, but it's one I've always been kind of curious about. Like, how does your job change, particularly given the fact that a lot of the stuff you'll be shooting doesn't necessarily have the stuff that's going to be there in it yet?
Well, go ahead, Cathal.
No, you go on. Jump off there.
I suppose we just have to trust in the visual effects designer and producer and kind of creator, who was fantastic visionary in his own right, and has been on the show since before. Well, I certainly joined it. That's Chris McLean, and he and David Goyer had a kind of a pretty good concept of what would be designed as part of the worlds and what would be extended, as did David Goyer. So, and since they had a lot of experience at that world creation and the concepts were there from Rory Sheen, I think I certainly did trust what was going to happen afterwards.
Owen, absolutely. And then, like, I do think a lot of the time we had these incredible sets that Chris was adding on to. And then I think the key was communication, to always keep in touch and to be chatting about, you know, I remember doing spaceships blowing up and it's like, well, what color is that? Or what would that be? How far away are they? And it was constant sort of communication as to what they were going to do afterwards, that then we could kind of marry into what we were doing. that it would all be cohesive then in the end, which, you know, hopefully it was. Like, but yeah, I mean, what they did, I think, was incredible. Like, and you know, what they come up with is just mad. But I think it's just communication to get what we're doing in the right ballpark as well.
Now, I mean, I'm curious, like, how do you both get pitched to join a show like this and be on a job like this? Because, I mean, again, like I said, it definitely feels like there's different dynamics than just sort of shooting a regular TV show or a regular movie. Like the element, like sort of the beautiful aerial shots and the nature shots combined with all these VFX definitely feels like it's a different animal than, say, a standard shoot.
That's very true. I mean, a lot of that to do as well, David, was because we were in so many jurisdictions and so many countries. And when you go to countries like that, they're just rich with that kind of imagery. And so we put drones up. We were, as Cathal knows, we were in the Canaries, and we were in the Czech Republic, and obviously the west of Ireland, where a lot of studio work was done. And so they're all very, very different landscapes. And all of that kind of contributed to how different all the worlds were. And so that scale, that scope was always like, would always give the show a bit of a wow factor. And if we were like hopefully lucky enough to just capture a bit of it, and then visual effects, which were prolific throughout the show, added to that, that just made our jobs, well, certainly made me look better anyway.
Yeah, and like, I mean, and that's it. Going to all these different countries, we went. You know, we were in 5 islands off the Canaries, and you know, you'd go to one island for, you know, a particular scene because it looked so different to anything else. And I think, you know, the producers pushed that, and David Goyer especially pushed that to try and get to these amazing locations, and visual effects on top of that, you know, added so much. But I think, you know, there was a lot of stuff that was done that you would think, oh, that's all visual effects. And it's like, it's not. We actually went to these locations, which was quite incredible. So from that sense, you know, the show was very, very special because, you know, it wasn't, you know, content to sit back and go, okay, this is mainly a studio show and that's it. There's so many locations, and so many incredible locations, from like rock formations in Czech Republic to, you know, I don't know, the desert in Fuerteventura, and it's just incredible. Like, that's why.
Yeah, that was always interesting because sometimes we got in 4-wheel drives and drove 20 minutes literally across dunes to get to the best location, or Cathal would end up shooting at the top of literally a volcano. I mean, a few times we found that, and that imagery is just striking, and getting access to those places is amazing. So that all adds to the richness of all the kind of worlds that they were trying to portray in like multi-time, multi-storyline, multi-character. It was a very complex threads of story, and all of those needed a world, and all of those also needed to look cohesive, which was like, that was difficult part of it, I suppose, to make all that feel part of the same story and yet thread it together. That's the challenge of it, I suppose, isn't it?
Now, I mean, I'm curious on something like this because, I mean, it feels like part of your job, especially when you're in these fantastic locations, would be just to shoot coverage and like to shoot as much as possible, just to have options and to have as much literal footage of these amazing, you know, backdrops as humanly possible. Like, how many hours did you guys have to leave on the floor of footage you guys shot? Because I can imagine just with the drones and you guys were using the cameras, there was quite a bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I would agree with that statement. There was, I mean, the show obviously been 10 episodes, and it was a very long, protracted schedule because of the traveling involved, because of the amount of sets that were built, and the country we visited. It wasn't linear. So, like, I was working with a director called Roxanne Dawson, and with David Goyer, and Carl was working with someone else and another director. And so, and then there was Tico Poulakakis, who was the third DOP on that season. And we would all roll through each major location if we shared it. And then the company would just up sticks and then move to the next major location or another island, or in the case of the stage sets, a different stage set, and we would all try and roll through those kind of worlds one after the other. And sometimes it got more complicated than that, obviously, but that was the plan. So we were always there together. Cathal, Tico, and I were always there, kind of running in, like shooting at either at the same time, or one would and one wouldn't be shooting with multiple units. So we would always get a chance. Like if Cathal was establishing a set or a scene, I'd say, right, what were you doing there? What, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, it's rigged. This is the look we'll go for. And then I would slip in after that, or vice versa with Tico, or vice versa. And that's how we tried to thread it.
Yeah.
Have some continuity of a look. And that worked more or less all the time, unless if Cathal or Tico had a distinct, had a different set of their own. And then that would be their own thing.
Yeah, like I remember, and exactly that, Owen. I remember, like, we had the same set to shoot on, and we were lighting them very different ways. And I know people were questioning, "Oh, you're doing that," because we had the questions beforehand, and it was like, well, you were shooting at the the introduction of that space, the clone tanks, and I was shooting a very, very different scene towards the end, where and But we could justify it ourselves by going, no, this is the way that you're going to light it, and this is the way I'm going to light it. But we had that conversation. So I think because we have those conversations, it becomes a cohesive work, and working with Tico as well, trying to make sure we were all kind of, shooting, it was something with intent, but also consistency. And like it was a foundation, show as of.
And also, I think, like certain scenes will be shot, the story progresses through, like in this occasion, over 100 years, and so obviously we were also given scope, and we were given latitude to say, okay, this is what's happening in this scene. This is what we need to do. The director has an input. She or he is interpreting what's in the script. So do what you want. You have obviously. The scripts, the sets or the locations are always going to be the same, and we have the same performers, but you have the ability still to work around that and just tell the story, whatever the scene is, and say, okay, this has to be a lighting cue, this has to be a certain tone, this is a certain mood, and then we would actually just do that, and that would give us a distinctive, and would create a distinction between each episode, because the directors all obviously have a different style, and we would obviously just try and serve the directors and yet bear in mind the whole feel of the show. So it was a balancing act. Sorry, go ahead, Cathal.
No, I was just going to say, like, I mean, I remember a few times, because I only shot some of season 1, and Owen was shooting that, and I'd go onto your set. And, I'd be so depressed coming away from it, because I'd be saying to myself, I'd never be able to shoot like that. That looks so beautiful. How can I do that? And I'd start whipping myself because, and same with Tico, because like I'd go onto the sets and you're doing all these things. And then when I started shooting and whatever, I fell into it and whatever. And it kind of made me realize that, like, what you were doing is coming from you. What I was doing had to come from me. But we need it to be of a cohesive thing, let's say a foundation look, if that exists. There's so many looks to it. But looking at you lighting, like, I would never be able to do that, because it needs to come from me. And then, so
of course.
But then inherently it's going to be something slightly different, but of the same place. But it needs to come from you or from me or whatever it is, if I'm making sense. Yeah.
And similarly, when we would go on, or Tico or I would go on to Cathal sets, oh, holy God, that's amazing. I would never have thinking of coming at it from that angle or that idea and that way, because sometimes it's a form of flattery, but imitation is not a way to tell some visual truth, and you just can't do it that way. You'll never get to something that you're happy with, because you're always trying to create someone else's accent, and that's never a good thing. And to be fair, Goyer did always encourage us to say, follow your director, follow your guts. If it's too outside the box or too extreme, and it never happened, by the way. No one ever came up to me anyway, I don't know about you, Carl, and said, "Oi, pull it back there, son. That's too much." Never. If anything, they said, "Go further. Go on. Put it out."
Yeah, it was all encouraging.
it was all encouraging, and that's great for a DOP to have that kind of autonomy, and also because some shows, what happens, someone starts the show, right, and they go, okay, that's the first episode, and everyone has to use the 20 to 70 zoom lens. There's no tracking. You can only do one push in, and it has to be completely symmetrical. And you're kind of going, huh? Well, that's the look we've established in episode 1, and you've got to carry that bucket. And I was like, what? But in this occasion, it was never like that. We all interpreted. We had different stories and different storylines, all separated by worlds. So I felt anyway, I had total free reign in that regard, which was great.
Yeah.
There was no suffocation visually like that.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to imagine that's the joy of the job, because I mean, Foundation is going to be different than, say, you shooting on Ripper Street, or you, Cathal, shooting on like a straight drama like Rosie. They're all going to be different jobs. Like, is that just the nature of how the job evolves and differentiates from shoot to shoot? Because I mean, it's never one straight thing, right? It's always going to be something different every time.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think we've the best job in the world. I mean, it is always different. It is always. And sometimes you kind of have to pinch yourself, go, am I really doing this? I remember like going onto a spaceship, and it's like, this spaceship, it crash lands, it goes through atmosphere, there's different things. They have a glint of somebody else looking at them, and you're kind of going, it is just a set, a beautiful set, and beautifully painted, etc. But it is literally just a box. So like the challenge for us is to make that move, to make it live and to be alive in the scene, so that's just, it's just beautiful. I remember like going onto your set, Owen, and you had this lamp and alpha going over the top, and it was this beautiful kind of shadow moving around, and it was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Obviously, I stole that, and there's so many things.
We're all influenced by different things, and going, okay. And we were talking to the gaffer at the time. How are we going to make this very unmovable looking box, make it feel like it's moving without it feeling like other sci-fi shows? What would it feel like in space? What it is? I mean, what can it look like? Is there anything we can do relatively simply? And that just came to mind, and then that worked. And then if it didn't, well, we wouldn't be using it again. And I think other DOPs pick up some stuff. I pick up from Cathal and go, that's a really good idea. I'm going to adopt that. I'm going to use that in that scene. And then Cathal vice versa, and Tico too. So we weren't afraid to share like that. I think we'd say this for everyone. We weren't possessive of the work or the ideas. And certainly the directors weren't, and they encouraged that cross-pollination of ideas all the time. And if it didn't work, then we tried to figure out, okay, how do I make it better? What can I fix or not if that isn't going to work for our scene, if it's night or day, or if there's explosions? What did you use for an explosion? There's a laser blast. What are we going to use? What's the best cues? What's the best thing to use? What makes it look a little more interesting and not more run of the mill like other shows that we could name? So we kind of did try and poke that. I certainly did anyway.
For sure.
And I think that was exciting. And I think as spaceships were great, and that was one nut to crack. But I must say, in terms of season 2, what I found kind of a hard thing to kind of figure out was, because we were in so many worlds and so many different places, it's like, what can we do to make it kind of feel all very different, but yet has some unified look. Now, I know that comes from coloring and the production design, and obviously the performers and all that other thing that would help. But on that occasion, we managed to convince, and I think Cathal was part of this, and Tico too, we managed to convince the producers to get these Ultra Vista lenses, right? Which were stupid expensive. And I remember kind of pushing hard, and I remember our producer at the time going, there's no way we can afford these. It's ridiculous. And I remember kind of pushing harder, and we finally, after a lot of toing and froing, we got them. And I remember going, God, these really look really different, because they anamorphize at a different rate. And also we figured out that because they're large format and they anamorphize to 165, what's interesting about them is when we shot in the desert, we were able to shoot 1:272. So we shot the full width of those lenses in the desert sequences on our episode. And I remember talking to the colorist, Tony Dustin. I'm going, Tony, is there any way that you can pull out and you can just reveal the full scope? And he goes, yeah, we have to do some weird algorithm thing. I think we can. And in those sequences, we pulled out and we're going, oh my God, it's really nice to see such a nice widescreen, like wide aspect ratio. And then every now and again, it was used in other episodes, which is fantastic because it meant you have a tool there that no one else has. So why don't we just exploit it? And that was really exciting because it was like, oh, that's really interesting. God, I've never had a chance to do this again. Mm. And so, and that helps. And also because Apple are broadcast the whole thing in 240, which is like amazing. And there was no question. Mm. They never came to us and said, oh no, you have to protect for, 2x1 or anything like that. And they kind of went, yeah, cool. And so I thought that was ballsy of Apple and really and a good decision. And Cathal, and I think I certainly benefited from it as well. And
massively. And those lenses, I mean, every single lens had its own characteristic, which was just mad. They're really old lenses that rehoused. Yeah. And it's like,
like, oh, what's going to offer today? I don't know.
Yeah. You kind of never knew, but that was the beauty of them as well.
But that was good. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And because they were so, because they had such all different characters and different moods, it certainly kept the focus pullers on their feet. And us too, well, I felt that, after a while using them, you get to know them and you get to know the ones you really like. And particularly our operators, they knew really from the off, no, this is really going to work for a close-up. No, this is going to work for a really, really good wide or something different or a bit macro. No, we have to use this lens with a diopter. And so because they all had pluses and minuses, you kind of, it made it far more interesting than just a homogeneous, absolute clean, like pristine set. And I think it gave it a bit of a slightly different character.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, gentlemen, just in talking to you, I mean, I think I'm appreciating the show even more. It definitely feels like this was more than just a job, and it felt like sort of, I mean, there's the old expression of it takes a village to make these things, but it definitely felt like the village was sort of all in together to sort of do something really unique here. But I mean, guys, just keep up the good work, and thank you for the work. And honestly, thank you for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Not at all.
Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the chat.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks. All the best, David. Bye-bye.
Thanks, man. David. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.